If you're the kind of person who lies in bed awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, thinking about the conversation you had yesterday or that you should have had, and rumination is the way you spend your nights, then this is for you. Today, we're going to talk about what is overthinking, how it works, and how to break it. The thing that you need to know is that overthinking is not a personality flaw. It's a repeatable brain loop. And when we know that, we know that we can fix it and change it. My name is Tanya Adams. I'm a neuroscience based coach, and I help people rewire their brains for success in life and business so that they can create the freedom, abundance, and joy in their lives that they deserve. Today, over the next 12 minutes, I'm going to help you to spot the overthinking loop. I'm going to share with you what's happening in your brain, and then I'm going to give you two of my favorite frameworks for how to break the loop, create an exit pattern, and settle yourself out of the overthinking. Ultimately, with the long term view of rewiring your brain so that that loop doesn't run on an automatic spiral. So stick around all the way to the end because I'm also going to give you a 60-second reset framework where you're pressed for time, but you're flooded with an overthinking moment in the middle of something big. So, what happens with overthinking? Overthinking is a function of the combination between the amygdala, which is the threat detection mechanism in your brain, and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala's job is to scan for threats. It looks all the time for any prediction errors. The amygdala is constantly looking for what it understands to be normal, and then it flags and tags anything that it figures out is not within what it was going to predict as a threat. The prefrontal cortex's job is to reason, to plan, and in fact to quiet down the amygdala when the alarm goes off. I think of the two of them like an alarm system in your brain and your protection detail, and then the prefrontal cortex is like the CEO of your brain. And then you have your reticular activating system. The reticular activating system is actually the scout out there looking for evidence of whatever you have told it to look for. It's a filtering mechanism. Our brains cannot take in every single piece of data that confronts us through our senses. And so, through your own language and your own decisions, some unconscious, some conscious, the reticular activating system filters out any information that we don't need. Here's where it goes wrong. Sometimes, if we have primed the reticular activating system or it's unconsciously done, it's going to trigger the amygdala. The amygdala sends a threat response, and unfortunately, it pulls blood supply from the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex doesn't actually come in order to switch off the alarm. Now, because the reticular activating system is already primed to see more evidence of the thing that we're afraid of, it simply uses this as evidence to report back to the amygdala to say, this is bad. Houston, we have a problem. And so this is where the loop gets stuck. And the way that we break the loop is to bring the CEO in from the balcony. The visual I have is that the CEO is out there watching the view on the balcony while the alarm system is going off, and our little scout is looking for evidence of why the alarm should be going off, and our wise CEO is out there on the balcony. How we break that overthinking loop is to bring the CEO back in off the balcony and then help the CEO to settle the amygdala. This all feels very real because we are gathering evidence all the time through our reticular activating system that we're justified in feeling anxious, in feeling fraught, and being caught in this loop. In terms of real experience, what I'm familiar with my clients is that there's different ways in which this is going to show up practically. For some people, they get caught in their heads and they get paralyzed by an overthinking scenario. For other people, their bodies completely betray them. They get caught up in high heart rate or rapid breathing. Some people have, in extreme forms, their body actually goes into a panic attack. And the third way that this might show up as an overthinking loop is people become frenzied. Perhaps perhaps get caught up in overdoing habits, in obsessiveness, in a behavior, which is the same thing. So you might check your email a million times in the morning, or scan through your social media. There may be an activity or a habit that you get caught in, and these three activities are all linked to the same overthinking mechanism. And whatever you know to be unique to you is where this technique would start, because whatever your doorway in, wherever you are seeing the overthinking loop happening, that's your doorway in to stop it. So the first thing to do is to start to develop an awareness of when you get caught in overthinking. Is it something that's happening in your head, that the thoughts are going on and on and on? Is it something where your body has started to react and you can feel it on a somatic level? Or do you become frenzied in your behavior? Wherever that is, that's where we're going to start. So take a moment now to think about anything in your life where you are caught currently in an overthinking cycle. And we're actually going to do a little mini workshop in a few minutes where we can do this together so that you get a real experience of it. I promised you two of my favorite models that you'll find in many of my videos. You can actually go back and look at some of the videos where we've talked about these before, particularly my favorite one that sounds like a lion. If you know this one, you'll know where I'm going with this. My two protocols are as follows. The first one is one that I call stop. In fact, some of my clients even have a big, huge stop sign stuck up in their room or in their office. And I use this myself. When I notice that I'm starting to ruminate or I'm going down a pathway of negative thinking, I literally will scream into my own brain, stop. So what does STOP stand for? STOP is an anagram for stop, spot the spiral. Stop and spot the spiral. And then T is for tell the truth. Is this the absolute truth? And what is the absolute truth? O is for override, with a more helpful thought form or a more helpful breathing pattern or a more helpful action, depending on what your gait is. And then P is proceed with power. So how does this play out? The first thing to do is when you recognize one of the three areas in which you are overthinking, thoughts, body, actions, behaviors, simply yell stop into your brain. If you need to put up a big stop sign somewhere out there, that's also acceptable. You can do that. It'll remind you. And then spot the spiral. How this works is simply to say, stop. This spiral is not happening right now. We're not going down this road. I see that I am spiraling. The minute that you name it, the brain starts to be able to call in your CEO, because naming it is what invokes the language part of our brain, which lives in the prefrontal cortex as well. So stop. The second part of stop is T. Tell the truth. I use a question. Is this the absolute truth? What is the absolute truth here? Normally, in fact, 100% of the time, the thing that we're catastrophizing about is not the absolute truth. We are not going to lose our jobs. We're not going to become homeless. Our partner is not going to run out the door on us. And we're not going to end up bankrupt or any of the terribly catastrophic things that we have. So what is the absolute truth? There may be facts that are true. I may be running out of time in a deadline. I may have left something to the last minute. That's okay. What helps to quieten down the amygdala is to name what the facts are. The fact is that I have time to get this deadline done. Or the fact is I've missed the deadline and I have the skill to renegotiate or recover my integrity with this. So tell the truth. What is the absolute truth here? Is it the absolute truth that all is lost? It never is. There is never an absolute truth to any of these things that we catastrophize about. O is for override. And the override here is override with something that is more helpful to settle your nervous system. What we're going for here is a settling of the nervous system to put you back on track in momentum. So O is an override phrase. It may be that you need to first regulate your nervous system through breathing. So simply box breathing. Breathe in for the count of 4. hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold on the out breath for 4. Once you've regulated your nervous system, then you can choose a new truth to choose to live into. So when you've spotted the not absolute truth, regulate your nervous system through a breathing exercise, and then choose a phrase. I have time to recover my integrity here, or I have the skill to get this done in time. Once you have regulated your nervous system, that phrase is another way of pulling your CEO in from the balcony and to start to quiet the alarm. The last step is proceed with power. Now, this is critical. Many people get as far as regulating their nervous system using a breathing technique or using an affirmation in the O space. Without P, our reticular activating system doesn't get deactivated or reprimed. In the beginning, I shared that there's 3 elements in our brain that contribute to the overthinking: the amygdala, our CEO, the prefrontal cortex, and the reticular activating system. We must re-inform and re-educate the reticular activating system, and we do this by acting on what we have said we would be. In other words, if the override phrase is, I am somebody who completes on things, even if I have left it to the last minute, I have the skill to do this, then P is about doing one micro action, and it's important that it's a micro action in the beginning so that your reticular activating system sees the evidence of you doing that thing and starts to shore up evidence to say, oh, yes, you are indeed a person who is good at doing whatever this thing is. And this becomes the new loop. Instead of an overthinking loop, it gets replaced with the stop loop, because we can then use that stop process over and over and over again, stopping what's not helpful, telling the truth, overriding it with something that's more helpful, and then proceeding with power to act in accordance with what we've said we were going to be in the future you. The second of my favorite tools is the RA framework. RAA. Regulate, align, and act. And this is all about identity rewiring. The brain is going to keep you locked into whatever thought patterns and behavior patterns are aligned with your identity. The brain doesn't want to create change because change in and of itself requires a lot of brain resources. It requires energy. And as it is, the brain is very energy heavy. It uses 20% of the entire body's energy stores. And it's constantly balancing its need for energy against its own needs and the needs of the body. It is the central control system. So, in the face of what it deems to be unnecessary, it will not naturally go into a space of extra energy usage to create change. What this means practically for us is that our brain is going to keep us behaving as we always did, even if it looks illogical, even if it's not giving us the results that our logical mind wants. The brain's not interested in that. The brain's interested in energy conservation and prediction in order to keep us around as long as possible. The RAW framework works because when we get stuck in overthinking, the first place to start is going to be with your body. So this is particularly good for you if you are the person whose body starts to spiral first. The first thing then to do is to regulate your nervous system with one of our breathing techniques. If box breathing doesn't work for you, then there's the physiological sigh, which is a big deep breath in. I recommend pinching your ring finger together with your thumb to open up the capacity in your lungs and breathe in. And then when you think you can't breathe in anymore, breathe in again. One more sip and then exhale it out. The other way to regulate your nervous system is to hum or to sing. I like to sing out loud. So the first step in RA is regulate your nervous system. This is for you if you are the person whose body reacts to overthinking primarily. Then align is to align your thinking now with the new identity. The new identity is similar to in our stop framework with the O is who is the future me? Who am I working towards in the long run? So align yourself with that. And what behaviors would a person who is accountable and competent and professional do? So you may choose for yourself an identity statement that says, I am somebody who follows through on commitments, even if it's hard, even if I don't know how, even if I feel unsure. And then what happens, again, in the similar way to the STOP framework, the reticular activating system looks for what kind of behaviors does somebody who holds that identity have. Now, in the beginning, this is quite manual because your identity is not yet hardwired into your neural network. Over time, it does become hardwired, though it's not instant. And then act is the third piece. Again, this is important that you act in accordance with your new identity to build the reference points that you are this person. Of course, we don't always have time for this, and sometimes we need to do a 30-second reset. So either one of these tools can be condensed into the 30 to 60 seconds simply by taking a couple of deep breaths, choosing a new thought form, and then choosing an action that takes less than 1 minute. That's all it takes to provide evidence to your brain that you are moving forward. I'm going to invite you to pause this video and get your journal out and start with an action. Start with an area where you are currently stuck in overthinking. Choose your gateway, whether it's thinking, body, or behavior, and then utilize either the STOP method or the RAW method to break that cycle of overthinking. What happens over time, in approximately 90 days, if you practice these tools over and over, is that your propensity to flip into overthinking starts to shrink. That's the first thing. The second thing is the length of time that you get stuck in overthinking starts to get shorter and shorter. Because what's happening is your entire identity is rewriting itself. And instead of you being an overthinker, you move your identity from I am someone who gets stuck or I'm an overthinker to I am a calm thinker. And when you make that identity shift over 90 days, it becomes a permanent piece of who you are. If you like this work and you enjoy what I share on every week, I release one of these videos every Monday. I do a live every Thursday morning, and you can subscribe to my channel so that you never ever miss anything. Put your notifications on so that you start to see when my material gets released. And if you want to do this work on a deeper level in your personal life, I started the Freedom Collective in April this year, and it is a membership collective for women who are interested in neuroscience. It is inclusive, it's neurodiversity friendly, and it's a space for women entrepreneurs to be able to rewire their identities for freedom, for joy, and for abundance in their business. If that sounds something like that you would want, then click the link in the description. We have literally just started our next 90-day sprint. We started that today, so there's still time for you to jump on so that you can close this year nice and strong and then move forward with a new identity into 2026. I look forward to seeing you either inside the Freedom Collective or on my channel next Monday. And please put a comment in below. What was it that really stood out for you today, and what are you going to implement going forward?